A story. I have okay. Can you give me a topic? I have like so many things I could talk about. I'm like,
love. Since you said you look at love differently, I think. So something around love, I guess.
Okay. The first thing that came to my mind is the story of my parents, how they met. I think it's very sweet. So my parents are two people, country people, grew up in poverty, and all of that. And it just so happens, my mom grew up in South Carolina, moved to Cleveland. My dad, he grew up on the Eastern Shore of Maryland. And they both were in those places, but somehow met up in Texas. And so my mom was visiting a friend. Said friend asked her friend in Texas to pick them up from the airport. That friend couldn't do it and asked my dad to do it. I don't know why. I still don't know why my dad was asked to do it. So my dad picked up my mom and her friend from the airport in 1978. And they've been together ever since. My dad told me that when he saw my mom, he knew that that was his wife because he had a dream about her. And
beforehand?
Before he met my mom. My dad had a dream about my mom, and when he saw her, he knew. He was like, that's the woman that was in my dream. And within 2 weeks, they fell in love and knew they were going to be together forever. And I don't remember if it was before or after they got married. They got married shortly after. And my dad had a tattoo of a dove on his arm with another woman's name in it at the time, his ex-girlfriend. And either like right before they got married or right after, the name faded out of his tattoo. So to this day, you can only see the dove and the little strip of paper that it's holding. You can't even tell there was a name there. And my mom says it's because her name was supposed to be there. And for a long time, I didn't believe them. I was like, there's like no... I have like 16 tattoos. So I'm like, there's no reason why a name would just fade out so quickly. And like, you can't even see like a hint of it. And he was like, no, it really was this person's name there. And she broke up with him. And then shortly after that, he went to Texas, met my mom. And they got together and the name faded out. And they've been together ever since. And they're still very much in love. They still go on dates. They love each other to death. They're kind of gross.
There's hope out there, folks.
I was always embarrassed.
And love at first sight is real. So that means you believe in love at first sight then.
I believe in connection. My mom wasn't in love with my dad at first. Like my dad, he's very much like me or how I was when growing up. He's very quiet, very shy. So my mom didn't think that anything would happen. And it just so happened that within 2 weeks, he changed her mind. And she just knew that that was going to be her husband and vice versa. So... And they've traveled the world together.
Oh, girl.
You know, they have 3 kids together. They have grandkids together, and they still very much love and respect each other. Like I never thought my parents argued, and until I asked my mom a couple years ago, and she was like, "Yeah, we argue all the time, just not in front of y'all. Like you never see us." And I was like, "Huh, okay." They're like, yeah, we don't ever want you to have a negative perception of us. So we never wanted to argue about stuff. We would always do it when you're not in the house or whatever. And so, yeah, that's a love story to me of just like these two people who met from different states in Texas, in Tejas, and have been together for 40 years now.
What is your love language? Like, do you feel like seeing your parents, you know, so lovey-dovey in the way they are, do you think it's affected how you handle your personal relationships? And
I tell my dad he really screwed me over because it's hard for me to have relationships, particularly with men, because I know what it's like to have a good man. And my dad, he's one of the best, if not the best man that I know. And so he's made it really difficult for me to date people because I can almost tell when someone is bullshitting me. And I don't want to waste my time. And my dad raised me to be very independent. Both of my parents did. So I'm not one of those women who looks for a man to do things for her. If anything, I want the relationship like my parents where they complement each other very well. There was never this gendered role in the house. Both my parents cleaned. Both my parents cooked. They both worked. My mom was given the option not to work when she was pregnant. She took it. She still had a business out of the house, but she was able to do what she wanted to do. Same thing with my dad. They really worked together. There was never this sense of, because my mom is a woman, she's somehow less than and doesn't have a say, or should just be quiet, or doesn't have a presence. They always communicate with each other. They're on the same page. And so I think if anything, they made it very difficult. He has made it difficult for me to date men. When it comes to women, it's a bit easier. I think it's easier for me to date women because I have lived a life as a woman and I know what I want. And it's just easier for me to communicate with women naturally. And so my love language is actually touch and quality time. And then it goes to like acts of service, words, and then gifts. So I don't know if my parents played a part in those, but I know that I love touch and quality time, probably because I've seen them do that for each other. And I think it's one of the easiest ways to express affection.
What's the most challenging thing that you've had to go through? You came out on the other side and like learned something that was life changing that you still hold on to today.
The most challenging would probably be I think it would be the loss of my great aunt and my cousin, because I was so close to them and I felt like they both transitioned and it was my fault.
Why did you feel like that was your fault?
So my cousin in particular, she used to live with me in Boston. She went to MIT and I knew she was having a rough time. She was younger than me and she was like my little cousin, loved her. And she was going through a really rough time. And then I graduated from law school, went to work in Europe at the UN. And we kind of stayed in touch while I was over there. And then I came back and I just dropped the ball. Like I stopped checking in, I stopped taking her phone calls. Not on purpose, but because I was busy and then I would forget to call her back. And it's just, you know, typical excuses of being busy. And I would wake up sometimes thinking about her and I'm like, oh, I need to call Charlie. And I never would do it. And then I got the call that she had died by suicide at MIT in her lab. And so I was just like, at the time I thought it was my fault. And since then, I actually contacted a spiritual person who's able to speak to people who transition and found out that she was fine. I got to speak to Charlie myself. And so that was tough because on one hand I knew she was relieved and at the same time I felt like I could have done more leading up to it. Even if I couldn't prevent it from happening, I felt like I could have been there and I knew I could have been there more. And so for a while I thought it was my fault, that it's because I was the last person she felt connected to in our family. I knew what was going on with her and I still didn't reach out. And so that was really tough. And it's still tough sometimes. And I think just the dissolve of relationships dissolving has been an interesting journey for different reasons. I've had to end relationships. Relationships have ended with me by other people, and that's always hard because I'm a military brat, so I don't have like childhood friends. So anyone I bond with is very like important to me, and so when that relationship ends, it feels like I'm losing more than just a person, like I'm losing a part of myself with them. And so that's been an interesting journey of not putting my self-worth and my value in other people. It's something I'm still working on because I'm the strong one in my friends group, and so not many people check on me, but I'm always constantly checking on other people, and sometimes I do want that to be reciprocated, and I recognize now that I can't depend on people to love me the way that I love them. I have to love them as they are and accept the love in the way that they express it. Like you can't really expect people to do what you would do for them. And that's been an interesting lesson for me because growing up, especially in the church, you're taught that, you know, an eye for an eye and what you do for others. Treat people as you want to be treated. And it's just, that's not how life works. Everyone has a story. Everyone is fighting a battle. Everyone has their own shit to deal with. And sometimes you're not a priority.
Right.
And sometimes people are not a priority in my life. That doesn't mean I love them less. It's just in that moment, I can't love you the way that you want me to. And so I think that's been a big lesson of just accepting love as it comes and being able to know when someone is loving me differently and when someone is not loving me at all. Has been an interesting journey. So yeah. Still learning. I'm very young. I'm still figuring this out.